Alrighty, guys, for the final time, let's talk about Andor, the show Andor, and specifically Andor Season 2. This is going to be a full spoiler discussion for episodes 10 through 12 of Andor Season 2, but also we'll sprinkle in, especially towards the end, my thoughts on the season as a whole and the series as a whole, really, because this is it. This is Andor, and, you know, I've been thinking about it for a while, and after seeing these final 3 episodes, I think I definitely will, over the next few weeks, do a rewatch of Rogue One as well. And I know I've done a rewatch of Rogue One somewhat recently, but now I think after having seen Andor, both recently having rewatched Season 1 a few weeks ago, and then also now just finishing Season 2, I think it's appropriate, right? There's a lot to digest now that we know where things stand and where things were going, you know, heading into Rogue One and all that good stuff. So I'm excited to do that, and we'll see where we go from here. But anyways, this is going to be about Andor Season 2. If you guys haven't seen the episodes, no worries. Just make sure to save the segment, save the pod, save all of it for later, or skip around on the podcast if that's where you're listening, and then make sure to come back once you have, and let's dive into it. Guys, Andor Season 2. Andor Season 2. And Andor Season 1 in general. When I did my rewatch of Andor Season 1, I liked it a whole lot more than I did the first time. And I really think that binging it had a lot to do with it. Because I think that the week-by-week model was just, it somehow broke up the momentum of the episodes or something. I don't know. And if you remember from Season 1, they weren't releasing all the mini arcs at once. They weren't releasing every 3 episodes at once. They were releasing it a couple episodes at a time or 1 episode at a time. And it just wasn't working that well, in my opinion. And so Season 2 has been a little better because every week is 3 episodes, and that's been better because each week is a little mini arc, but I still can't shake the feeling, and I don't want to rewatch it immediately. I still can't shake the feeling that I think binging this season as well is going to be more beneficial, just to see how everything connects in the Gorman arc and everything about the Empire and what's going on there. I just think it would help, because I think that there are parts of this show, this season so far, that I've been, I kind of iffy on, especially towards the beginning more so. Towards the end, it really started to kick into gear with the Gorman arc and now with these final 3 episodes. But towards the beginning, it was a little bit like, like there were some things in there that I was a little iffy on, and then as we go along here, you really start to see where this is going. But overall, I love the show. I love how political it is. I love how you get to see the rebellion building and all that, and I think that it's so intricate and it's so well thought out and so well written, and it really makes you see, it allows you to see where things are coming from, how the rebellion started from the ground up, from a guy named Luthen. And I know it's not just Luthen, right, who started the rebellion, but really, and that was the big debate towards the end of the series, not to get too ahead of myself, but is really this rebellion that you see on Yavin is not there without Luthen, and that was again a topic of conversation that was going on between Mon Mothma and Bail and all these other characters. So we'll get there. But let's start out here as we usually do and just go through some of my thoughts per each episode, and then we'll talk about the series as a whole at the very end. So let's dive into episode 10, and we start out here with Luthen. And Luthen, it's not looking good because the ISB is onto him, and they've been hunting for Access. Dedra has been hunting for Access for the entire show basically, and now she's finally onto him. And also Lonnie comes back, and he's found out about the Death Star, and Luthen he's like, tell me about this weapon. And then looks like Luthen, in his classic Luthen style of do whatever it takes for the rebellion, or do whatever it takes to keep the line moving. He kills Lonnie, it looks like, and just cold-blooded, but no loose ends, right? Luthen was about to kill himself, and for the sake of the rebellion, and that's what Clea makes that sacrifice later on for Luthen, and it's heartbreaking, but that's they believe so much in this cause, and it's brutal the way that they go about it, and we'll see that in some of the flashbacks later on as well. And so then Luthen heads back to the shop, and he starts to to destroy all the evidence. But Dedra Meero, she meets him there, and it's tense, that the confrontation between the two of them, where she's like, I've been waiting for this, and I've dreamt about this, and it's scary. It's really scary. And she brings out that Imperial Starpath unit, and for those of you who remember, that's from Andor, the first 3 episodes, right, where that was what Andor was going to steal, and that's when Luthen recruited him to the rebellion for the first part. I love this line that Luthen says here, where Dedra says, "You disgust me." And Luthen says, "There's a whole galaxy out there waiting to discuss you." And I love that because it's true. You know, obviously he's Axis and he's sort of the person who knows everything, but really what he says here is true, that the rebellion has flown. And the rebellion is so far from just being one person anymore. And obviously Luthen and Clay were very, if they had gotten caught and they had revealed information, they would have known a lot. But Luthen knows. Luthen knows the rebellion is its own beast at this point. And so you kind of figured, right? Because he has that information, and you kind of figured he was going to go out on his own terms. I thought he actually died in this scene, but it turns out he just barely survives. And I was kind of thinking, that would have been like it's an understandable. You kind of figure that's how he's gonna go out in this series, but it felt a little bit abrupt, especially just given the fact that this is so early on in the first episode of this arc. And so then we start getting flashbacks between Luthen and Clea and how Luthen rescued her. And I was like, okay, I'm interested in this, but I'm not sure how this connects. But slowly you start to realize what's going on here as Clea begins to infiltrate the hospital, and she's going to try to get to Luthen. Now, the entire episode, and again, I might just be slow. It might just be because I watched the episodes right as they came out, and it was a little late for me. And I was like, oh, okay, she's going to go try and save Luthen. And that's a very heroic thing for her to do. I didn't know until the very end when she unplugs the device that no, what she was going to do was make the sacrifice and kill him, because she knows that the information it can't get out. It just can't. And so she makes that sacrifice, even though the entire episode, I love actually that the entire episode was really dedicated to Luthen. I think that's awesome. And giving him really a proper send off. The full episode, there's no Andor in this episode. It's just Clea and Luthen. And I love it. And honestly, to me, episode 10 is probably the best episode of the entire season for me, because I don't know, it just shows you the kinds of decisions and choices that these characters have had to make to get to where they are at this point. And Luthen and Claire are such complex characters that you feel for them, but you also you're nervous and tense and it's crazy, it's scary. So anyways, also Daedra is under arrest at this point as well, which is an interesting turn for that character. She doesn't die at the end of the series. She's just kind of under arrest. But yeah, Clea and Luthen, we get back to them, their flashbacks, and the young girl has to witness a firing squad. She has to witness, Luthen setting off a bomb, and she was going to set off the bomb herself, but, it shows you the kinds of characters that they're becoming and that they will become. And, Luthen is like, anything. I'll do anything for this empire, or for this rebellion. And it just shows you who they are. The episode is just incredible to me. I love the dynamic between the two, where you can tell that Luthen genuinely cares about her. Like, he cares about her more than he cares about anyone else in this entire series. And you can tell. You can tell that even then, he's trying to be a little callous to her as a little girl, but even still, you can tell that he really cares about it. And then Clea, there's a great sort of infiltration sequence where she goes to the hospital and she has to unplug that device, and it's horrific and it's beautiful all at once. I think this episode might even be the best of the series for me. It's awesome, and I in a really weird way, it's crazy how they were able to pull that off. So that was episode 10. Episode 11, as we head into the final two episodes. So Daedra, she's in a cell, the same kind of cell that Cyril was in very early on when he was first being interrogated by Daedra. Kind of a reversal of roles here. Krennic is back because Krennic is trying to plug up all the loose ends about the Death Star. He's like, listen, we can't have any of those leaks going on, not until Rogue One, right? And Daedra, she was so hyper fixated on finding Access that she dug into places that she really shouldn't have. She was digging into files that she really should not have been doing. And that's, it shows you that she's an Imperial loyalist, and she is cutthroat as any of the Imperials, but she did not make all the right decisions either. And I think that is super interesting. Again, just making these characters more and more complex as well. But, they put her in prison, and she's trying to tell them, look, you need to go after Clea, and they kind of ignore her until later on in the episode, but she's right. She's right. So then we finally cut to Andor, and, I was wondering, when are we going to get to Andor? And K2SO is there. They're just hanging out, playing some kind of poker or gambling game or whatever. I love K2SO. Like, watching K2SO for these final two episodes, 1.5 episodes, I was really sad that he was only in 1.5 episodes, because I really miss that character. He's one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars. And I mean everything in Star Wars. He's one of my favorites. I really, really miss him. And it's, they get the transmission from Clea. It's so good to see Andor and K2 just flying a ship again. It's amazing. They've only been in one movie together, and they made such a big impression on me. And now we get to see them together for a final couple of episodes. And yeah, Will and Cassian, Melshi, they risk it all because look, I mean, Luthen is not seen in a good light in the rebellion and on Yavin, but they know they gotta go save him, and so they go out there, they go back to the old safe house, the old apartment, right? Things are coming together from the entire season. That's where Bix and Cassian were staying for some of the series, and then it's not gonna end well, right? But Clea, she's talking about the fact that there's this giant weapon going on here, and Galen Erso, and this is where you start to see the seeds being planted, right, for what happens in Rogue One. Again, I have to watch Rogue One again to figure out how you get from here to when you first meet Cassian, who kills, I'm assuming the guy they were going to go look for at the end of the series is he the guy that Cassian kills at the beginning of Rogue One? I don't know. It could be. But then, I'm curious to see how he's able to find Jyn Erso. Also, Saw Gerrera the entire time knows about Jyn Erso because he kind of raised her at the beginning of her life, and so there's no mention of that though in this entire series, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, we get this intense fight scene in the apartment. I thought Clea was going to die there, we head into the final episode here with this intense fight scene in the apartment, and K2SO is just he's awesome. He's just flicking Imperial soldiers off, just like they're rag dolls, and it's crazy. I again, one of my favorite characters in Star Wars, and what a ride this has been, right? As we enter this final episode, K2SO coming to the rescue here, they're able to rescue Clea and head back to Yavin, and we're kind of doing the wrap up here for Andor. That was pretty much it, and we get to see some characters that we haven't seen in a while. So Saw is back, and he's looking more like the Saw that we see in Rogue One with all the breathing apparatus devices, and Mon Mothma looks like original trilogy Mon Mothma, which is great. It's amazing, right? You get to see just how far these characters have progressed from the beginning of season 1 until now, and they're very much their Rebellion counterparts, their Rogue One counterparts. It's great. And so yeah, Cassian comes back, and they know there's a weapon here. There's some energy. There's Galen, the Energy Project, Galen Erso, and I love that this is it's not a given, right? They're kind of like, well, okay, but I mean, there's some debate here going on of how much do we trust this because it comes from Luthen. They don't trust Luthen. Even Bail doesn't trust Luthen. I think that's actually a really interesting wrinkle. They're not just taking any of this on face value either. And I think that it's, again, it's just a super interesting, it just makes the characters more rich. So, that's, I really like that. Cassian and Val also just spend some time remembering the people that they've lost. And there's a lot of people that they've lost along the way. We've lost along the way, throughout this adventure, these 24 episodes of Andor. And you feel most of all for Clea in these final couple minutes here, because she's just in shock. She's like, I don't know what to do anymore. I've lost Luthen. I've lost the person I cared about the most, and it's just like you just feel for her, and it's it's really sad. So we get these closing shots here. It's almost like a little bit of a wrap up where you kind of are checking in on all the characters, and you're checking in on where they are, who what they're doing. You see Saw at the very end. You see Mon Mothma, Bail, and you even get to see Bix. And I knew, I called it in the last arc. I knew that we were going to end the series on Bix. I thought we were going to actually end the series on Bix post Rogue One, post New Hope, post Cassian's death, and it could be maybe in that final shot she knows. I don't know. There's something specific. I have a feeling it's just her, what she's up to in that moment, right as Cassian's about to leave from Yavin. But I kind of figured, it makes sense, right? We have to kind of emotionally tie up those tie up that emotional arc between Cassian and Bix, and sure enough, we do. And so that's it. That's Andor season 2, and you kind of take a step back, right? Each little arc, each little story feels like a lot, and yet feels like it's just one little piece of a giant tapestry that was being built. And sure enough, after 24 episodes, I've seen all 24 episodes of Andor in the span of a couple months, I think. I started my rewatch of Andor season 1 something like a couple months ago, in February maybe. So in the span of 3 months or so, I've seen all of Andor, and I'm hoping to see Rogue One again in the next couple of weeks, and it's amazing. It's truly amazing. You see, you go from seeing Cassian as this person who's like, I'm just out for myself. I only care about Marva, and I only care about just making it out of here in one piece, to being a true leader. You see Mon Mothma being scared, but willing to do the right thing, to taking on that leadership position in the rebellion. You see Luthen, who is so dogmatic and so willing to do whatever it takes for the rebellion, and he dies with that conviction. And it's amazing. It's amazing what they were able to do. Again, I don't think Andor, to me, is the show that I am just going to look at every single time and go, oh yes, this is my all-time favorite, comfort watch, and I'm going to watch, if I ever want to watch anything Star Wars, it's going to be Andor. I don't think so. But I just appreciate and love so much the place in Star Wars that Andor resides in. It feels so real. It adds so much color and depth to the Star Wars universe of how the rebellion came to be. It didn't just appear out of nowhere. These rebellions are not built overnight. It took years. It took people's sacrifices and people sacrificing other people, frankly, to get there, and espionage and betrayals and spying and nobility and courage and bravery. And it's amazing to see what it took to get the rebellion to where it is. I will forever appreciate this series for showing us that. And I think that forever, right, seeing now Rogue One, seeing A New Hope, and realizing this is what it took to get the rebellion to this point is something invaluable that this series did. And I think also, above all, right, because one of the criticisms, this is the last thing I'll say before we close out this segment, one of the criticisms about the prequels was that, the politics and all the boring Senate talk and whatnot. And I get it. The prequels, they really didn't execute it that well, in my opinion. But that's not to say that politics in Star Wars is inherently a bad thing. I think Andor, and I'm saying this, lowercase p politics, I have to keep saying this. It's not capital P American Democrat Republican politics. It's lowercase p politics, is brilliant. Because that is what society is built. It's the empire. It's showing the political machinations of the empire and what it took to overthrow it. I think it's brilliant. It's history. It's politics. It's ideology. It's social science. It's amazing. It's just amazing. Anyways, that's just my little aside. I think it's great. I am so glad we have something like Andor in the Star Wars universe. Just as glad as I am that we have something like Skeleton Crew in the Star Wars universe. Skeleton Crew, to me, is probably still going to be my favorite Star Wars show, because it just brought me that joyous feeling that I remember from watching Star Wars when I was younger. But that's, again, not to say that I loved Andor and what Andor brought to Star Wars and to me as a Star Wars fan. I'm just so grateful for that. So guys, what did you think about Andor? It is now over. Andor season 2 is now over. Where does it rank amongst all of your all the Star Wars projects, the movies, the shows, all that good stuff? Let me know in the comments down below.